When you think about lost media, I'm sure the likes of cartoon pilots and video games are among the first categories of content that come to mind. Those are a couple of my favorites as well, and I've covered so many different mysteries surrounding them on the channel before. However, there's another category that's one of my personal favorites, and that's physical lost media. To me, physical lost media is something that is tangible, whether that's in the form of an action figure or public art sculpture, whose whereabouts is unknown. There's some debate within the community about whether or not this really counts as lost media, but no matter your stance on it, I have a lot of fun talking about this kind of thing on the channel, and consider it within the genre myself. It's insane to think about how something that was either previously well known to exist or be well documented cannot be touched or held in the real world, and on the opposite end of that, how an item could have been made with so little documentation that it barely exists at all. Which is what we're going to focus on today. Recently, I've come across several more items that seem to have been made and released to the public, but are so hard to find and scarce that it's nearly impossible to get information about them. While I haven't really had a good opportunity to make a point of it in my videos, my favorite arcade fighting game series is without a doubt Tekken. I played Tag Tournament in the arcade a few years ago and had a lot of fun with it, but never went out of my way to get a copy of the game for myself. Well, a year or so after that, I happened to be in a thrift store and found a copy for only a couple bucks, decided to pick it up, and built up a collection of Tekken games afterwards. However, there was something else Tekken related that I wanted to add to my merchandise collection, and that's the figures. I love getting merchandise for new game series I get into, and Tekken has quite a bit of merchandise that was made for it. Lots of statues and smaller action figures from an old school figure company called Epoch, and even unique looking keychains with alternate costumes from the game. While all of this was really cool to discover, there was a specific type of merchandise I hoped to find, and those were action dolls. I've always loved the appearance of action dolls, and made a video not too long ago about this incredible Terry Bogard that was made for Capcom vs SNK 2, which became a lost media search in itself. Interestingly, I did find exactly what I was looking for when it came to Tekken dolls, as there were a couple sets made by Epoch, one for Tag Tournament and one for Tekken 4. And while they were kinda hard to find, I did eventually track down Kazuya and Jin with little trouble. However, this wasn't really enough for me, and similar to my situation with Terry merchandise, I didn't feel like these really captured the Tekken essence. The sculpts were just okay, the costume choices were questionable, and overall, I didn't feel like these were the Tekken centerpieces I wanted. So after scouring the web for anything I might have missed, I came upon the old Namco website, which had a section for the history of Tekken merchandise. I scrolled through, having come across the dolls and smaller figures, until my eye caught something I had never seen before. They kinda looked like the smaller Epoch figures, but didn't seem to have any articulation, and I hadn't come across any statues that even looked close to the poses these characters were in. What were they? My initial thought is that they were prototypes of the Epoch figures I had come across before, but looked way cooler, standing at a whopping 16 inches, with sculpts that looked more dynamic as well. Most importantly for me was Jin, who was wearing his Tekken 3 costume, and that completely sold it for me. These figures are the ones I wanted for my collection. But strangely, there was just nothing about these anywhere online, except for this one old webpage, and it would take some digging to get an answer about what these even were. After an hour or so of failed Google searches, I had to be a little more specific with where I was looking, and decided to check the entries on a figure database called My Figure Collection, thinking that if these were indeed prototypes of the Epoch figures, someone would have made mention of them. While I didn't actually find any discussion or mention of these figures specifically, I did find a post about them. In the gallery section of the Epoch Paul Phoenix figure, someone posted a photo of what they thought was the small Epoch figure, but it was actually the large unknown figure. I could tell from the lack of articulation and the slightly different face sculpt. This was without a doubt the same figure from the Namco website, and after tracking down the owner, they informed me they also knew very little about it, only that they received it a long time ago and it allegedly came from Toys R Us. Even though this didn't give me a lot of information, it was able to confirm that these figures weren't prototypes and did release. After a lot more digging and trying various combinations of search terms that one could say pushed Google to its limit, I came upon another Twitter user who shed some light on this entire mystery. They're a big Tekken collector, and just so happened to have a few of the figures from this photo, and posted them only a few months before I started this search. Heihachi, Paul, and Jin. The timing couldn't have been better, and it was insanely cool to see that more of the characters had been released to the public, and in full color packaging. But this didn't solve every question I had about them. There's no documentation that Lee, Nina, or Devil Kazuya were released, despite appearing on the back of the box, which is especially strange since Devil Kazuya wasn't even in the original photo from Namco's website, and I still didn't know what company made them or how they were released. However, thanks to a single photo of the back of the packaging, I wrapped up most of this mystery. There's text near the bottom that states the figures were made by Raining Looney and High Dream Corp, with a website of the company. It's clear that despite being similar to the Epoch figure sculpts, these were made by a completely different company, ones that I was unfamiliar with. While High Dream Corp is still around today, I had to use the Wayback Machine to find their old site, and by doing that, you can pull up a webpage for their defunct online store, which actually sold Heihachi, Paul, and Jin figures right there as well. I did a little more research into the company, and turns out they're the same High Dream Corp that made the Capcom vs. SNK 2 dolls, including the Terry I have, which could be bought from their site back in the day as well. I even managed to find more prototype images of the Tekken figures, which use the same background as the Capcom vs. SNK 2 prototypes. It's also interesting to note that while the company is based in Japan, their product lines seem to have been mostly distributed in the UK and European countries, which probably explains why I had to import my Terry from Italy, and have found no evidence of the Tekken figures releasing anywhere else, despite the official Namco website claiming the prototypes were sculpted in the US. And based on the absence of the other characters from not only High Dream's website, but the Twitter comment as well, I'm guessing the line was cancelled before the remaining characters could be released, and didn't last very long, which could explain the rarity of the figures that did release. While I was very satisfied in getting an answer on pretty much all the questions I had about this figure line, and the company behind it, there was still one question left. How the heck would I get the Jin figure, or any of the characters from this line? Well, sometimes, all it takes is looking in the right place at the right time with the right search terms, and you can find anything you are looking for. Now that I knew all about the figures, I could use that knowledge to help me find them, and only a few months later, I did it. I found my Tekken Holy Grail, the High Dream Corp Jin figure. I don't think I've ever bought anything so quickly before, but I made sure that listing was gone the second I saw it. It's coming from the UK, which lines up exactly with my research, but unfortunately, that means I don't have it yet, as shipping could take a few weeks. The listing claimed it was actually a holo figure, and from the pictures, it appeared to only have a Namco stamp on it, and nothing from High Dream Corp or Raining Looney. This is one piece I'm so happy to have in my collection, but what if I told you that victories can be short-lived? that there can exist items rarer than Terry and Jin, which pushed me to my lost media limits and have nearly defeated me. Before we get into that item, however, I'd like to take a little break from the intense searches and discuss some collectibles that are more interesting and fun to think about, rather than something that I tirelessly search for. I mentioned previously that the main series of smaller Tekken figures were made by a company called Epoch, who still exists today, but were best known for their video game figures from the late 90s and early 2000s. If there's any set that I'm sure you'd be familiar with, it's the Zelda Majora's Mask figures. But in addition to those ones and Tekken, they made lots of other lines, including Dead or Alive, Guilty Gear, and most interestingly, Soul Calibur. Soul Calibur is another arcade fighting game that I really enjoy, and back in the day, I played 2 on the GameCube, so I'm more familiar with the series compared to Tekken. But what's most interesting about the merchandise from the series is that there really isn't a lot of it. This makes it particularly interesting to discuss, because of the stuff that does exist, I would argue the Epoch figures are some of the best items you can get, with Mitsurugi, Xianghua, and my favorite, Nightmare, being from this line. They were good scale and articulated, but at the same time, this is pretty disappointing because there's only 3 figures that were made for the line, which is where the mystery begins. Epoch will usually show the entire line of figures from the series on the back of their packaging, since most Epoch lines only got 1 wave. However, for Tekken and Soul Calibur, they hint at upcoming characters for the next wave. Tekken saw the release of all these figures, and as far as I know, there were never any that got cancelled and never came out. But if you look on the back of the Soul Calibur box, it shows Wave 2 as Keelik, Ivy, and Astaroth. For a long time, I didn't even realize this advertisement was here, but once I did, I spent a good amount of time trying to research what happened to these figures, if they were cancelled, if they were released in limited quantities, or if they exist as prototypes only. Unfortunately, I never found any information about them outside of this advertisement, so I think they were cancelled before production even began. I don't think these Soul Calibur figures were particularly popular compared to something like Tekken, and even nowadays on eBay, you can find Xianghua in piles, while Nightmare is pretty scarce. So I'm guessing it's a classic instance of overproducing the less popular character and underproducing the popular character, which killed the line. There's even a strange series of silver repaints of the original characters, which might be a reference to the metal model alternate costumes from the game. But it's never a good sign when a company chooses to re-release old figures that early on in the line. I have seen unverified claims here and there about the figures, which claim they released, but I think they're just getting that information from the back of the box and didn't actually check anywhere else. You can find other figures of Keelik, Ivy, and Astaroth from other companies, but nothing Epoch ever released. I even went as far to locate prototype images of the original line of characters from Toy Fair, thinking maybe the other 3 existed in this way, but have never found even prototypes of them. This also wouldn't be the first time Soul Calibur figures have been cancelled, as another company, Triad Toys, planned to release Soul Calibur 4 action dolls of Taki and Mitsurugi. They got as far as Taki, which doesn't look great and wasn't received well, while Mitsurugi never came out. I also found out recently that Storm Collectibles has the Soul Calibur license, and is once again going to start the series off with Taki and Mitsurugi. It would be nice to get more than 1 wave of Soul Calibur figures before the line is cancelled, so hopefully they can pick up where Epoch left off. It definitely seems like the theme for this video is Epoch, but honestly, I think that's a good thing, because to me, they deserve more recognition. Most people only remember them for their Majora's Mask figures, which aren't even brought up too often nowadays, but I did notice their Tekken figures got more popular once Kazuya was announced for Smash. Personally, they're one of my favorite toy companies, and if it wasn't for the rarity and price of so many of their releases, I'd have way more of their merchandise than the few items I have. However, out of all the items Epoch has released over the years, there's one that has become my new collecting holy grail, an item so hard to find that I didn't even think it was released at all, and it might actually be rarer than the Terry doll and Jin figure I mentioned previously. I guess the secondary theme for this video is arcade fighting games, because this item is from another one of those. This time, it's Dead or Alive. This is another series I got into recently after looking for games to expand my Dreamcast collection with. While the gameplay isn't as fun as Tekken, and I'm not a huge fan of the roster either, there are some cool characters in the series, and as expected, they're characters I'd like to add merchandise to my collection. Kasumi, being the main character of the series, and really iconic in her own way, was a character I wanted merchandise of. So when I started looking for Kasumi figures, that's when I found the one I wanted. It was one picture on a Japanese hobby website that started this search. A stock photo of a Kasumi action doll that looked pretty much exactly as I would have expected one to be. Really nice cloth fabric used for the outfit, great articulation that isn't hindered by her accessories, and a plastic head which always looks way better than doll hair. I didn't even realize it at first, but this item was actually made by Epoch as well. I knew they made a Dead or Alive 2 figure set, but I had no idea they did action dolls too, especially since this predates the Tekken ones by a couple years. There were more details in the listing, which state it was released in March 2001, retailed for $80, and is 1/7 scale. The amount of new merchandise you can discover just by looking it up is amazing, when you consider just how long these listings have been online for, but have gone under the radar ever since. But that's not all, because it gets even better. I looked at the related products on the same site, and discovered Ayane is in the same set too. While I don't like her character as much as Kasumi, and I think the sculpt isn't as good, they did a great job with the fabric details, and this is a piece I would buy right away. But as you might expect with how old these figures are, they are not easy to find, and as I went deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole, both figures became a bigger and bigger want. And I can say without a doubt that these figures just barely exist. The majority of places I've even found the figures listed are shopping websites that have the listings up simply for archival, or database websites like My Figure Collection that restate the details of the figures found on the shopping sites. Apparently, both Kasumi and Ayane are a part of a larger action doll line Epoch made called Action Doll Nine, and are numbered 2 and 3 from that line. They're the only video game characters featured in the line, and the line itself is not very large, with only 8 characters in it. I thought searching for the Nine line would possibly lead to more results, or better information on how they were released, but it didn't really help much. The most interesting piece I found was a product advertisement page from the Raving Toy Maniac website, which shows the dolls in some cool poses, along with a lot of Japanese text. There's a link to a website called Hobby Link Japan, which is a Japanese-based store that ships worldwide. So I think this confirms neither doll released outside of Japan. The stats on My Figure Collection show that someone on the site has them, but no pictures were shown, and people usually don't provide pictures of rare things when I ask. Since the original hobby shop used a stock photo, I couldn't be sure if the box photo they had was anything more than a sample or prototype itself. And it wasn't until I started using more finely tuned Japanese search terms that I got some results. I found an old Yahoo Japan auctions listing of Kasumi that I couldn't even access, but appeared to be in someone's hand, and an out-of-stock listing for Ayane from another Japanese secondhand shop. While I was convinced these did release, there was one final auction I found that really put into perspective how rare these were, and how hard it's going to be to find them. There's another old listing from Yahoo Auctions Japan that took weeks for me to find, of someone apparently selling their Dead or Alive collection, but right there, in the listing, both the pictures and description were Kasumi and Ayane dolls still in their package. And even though I had come across those old listings previously, I had no idea how long ago they were sold, but this one was dated November 2020. So as far as I can tell, the last archived sold listing of these dolls was in 2020, and before that, it could have been years. The whole lot only sold for $80, but there's a price tag on Ayane's box, so even she had come from another store before going on Yahoo Auctions Japan. It's strange, because when I was researching Terry and Jin, I felt like even though it took a while to find the listings, the time I spent researching felt like I was improving my chances of finding them, because the information itself could be used in a useful way. However, the information about the Dead or Alive dolls doesn't really give me anything to work with that I wasn't already doing before I discovered their existence, because I buy stuff from Japan pretty often, and I search for Dead or Alive stuff pretty often. The term Nine is really the only thing I wasn't using before, but I'm still limited in where I can even search that, because it's unlikely for someone on eBay or outside of Japan to have one, know what it is, and sell it in a way where I can find it. I'd still love to see more photos of the dolls and get a better idea of how they're made, so it would be cool if a collector did have them and they could resurface in that way. So they won't remain as much of a mystery until I find my own. Hey guys, it's LSuperSonicQ, and I hope you enjoyed the first part of this video, but in the second part, we're going to take a look at that stuff behind me, my video game merchandise collection. A lot of you guys have been wanting me to show this off for a really long time, because I kind of tease some pictures of it on Twitter every now and then. So I figured what better way to do that than in a video that was going to find physical lost media that I would be adding to this table back here. So I'm going to give you the whole tour, but you won't see everything, because my collection started in 2008, and I've gotten a lot of stuff since then, and I just couldn't fit everything out on display. My house flooded a few years ago, and I had to pack a lot of it up, never unpacked it all, and I'm still buying stuff currently. Not as much as I used to be, but I am still buying stuff that I really want to add to the table in my collection. So what you guys are going to see is kind of my favorite items, not so much like everything I have, because I have bags and bags of plushes that are just kind of thrown in closets, and boxes of like carded figures and stuff, and even stuff underneath this table that we don't really need to get into because it's not super important. But the stuff you guys are going to see is like the highlights, the really cool stuff, so I hope you enjoy, and let's go take a look. Okay, so we'll start here with this No More Heroes 3 banner that I believe was used at GameStop. There's not a lot of merchandise for No More Heroes that exists, and I especially like the third game. So I saw this on eBay, and I decided to buy it for my collection because it's small and pretty easy to display. I don't buy a lot of things like that, but I thought it looked really nice above all these smaller figures. So some of these are kind of in disarray because I ordered some more stuff recently, so it's kind of going to have to be changed, and I didn't bother tidying it up for the video, but that's okay. So here's some smaller Mario Kubrick figures and like an 80s candy toy and stuff like that. And then over here are some Dot Graphics soundstage figures, the Mario Bros. From the Nintendo set and Tower of Draga from the Namco set. And then over here are these secret rare figures from the Nintendo set, the Luigi and Nana. All those are still sealed, which is really incredible. I'm glad I found these many years ago when I was looking for them. And there's some older Zelda Gashapon figures from one of the older sets. Here's a really cool Cloud plush from Final Fantasy VII. This plush is pretty infamous because it deteriorates over time with the material that was used for the gloves and the sword and stuff. I picked this up many years ago when I was playing Cloud in Smash Bros. And he's pretty hard to find now, so I'm glad I got this when I did. You're never really going to find one in perfect condition, so all things considered, mine is not bad at all. I've seen some in way worse condition than this. It's just one of the problems with these old UFO plushes is they just age over time. Below him are some older like Mario Kart figures and other like little Jack specific accessories. Then some box figures over here, a Funko Pop from Dig Dug, and a Mario Maker Snow Globe, and a Silver Mario Amiibo. I never got like super big into Amiibos, but I always liked that one. I remember I found that one like on launch day or whenever they all came out. And I think behind these, there's even some more boxed like Joyride figures, but you can't really see them because there's just so much stuff. Then in front of that are some more miscellaneous figures. Donkey Kong. This is kind of cool though. This Crash Bandicoot mascot plush from Japan. So I'm not a big Crash fan, but I did want to get some old Crash merchandise, and I happened to find this for like $30, and I said, why not pick it up? This was a few years ago though. I'm not really sure how hard Crash stuff is to find nowadays. Again, some more older figures. Joyride Link and Joyride Luigi. I got these when I was a kid, and some Yoshis that have fallen down and stuff. Here's some more like Jax figures, and here's another like Dot Graphics pixel figure. And let's go this way. So over here is kind of where things kind of need to get tidied up the most, I think. Well, there's a Star Fox Adventures Fox bobblehead that was a pre-order bonus at Target. I don't think these are too hard to find nowadays either, so it's a really cool figure for, you know, what it is. But all these are like just like Sonic figures and kind of just stuff that, I don't know, I need to just like I said, just kind of like fix it all up and stuff, but, you know, they're kind of just all out front here. There's a Resaurus Gamma, which is really cool. I got that way a long time ago, way before like he was a really hard to get figure. Here's a Morgan figure from Darkstalkers, and here's a little guy he's from a Sega Saturn game. I don't remember what game it is, but I always see the game when I look for Saturn stuff, and I didn't know they made a keychain of him, so I said, oh, pick that up. Again, Jax figures, you know, other stuff like that. In this little display, there's tons of little Popco figures, but you can't really see them because Resident Evil 4 Leon from NECA and PlayArts Kai Cloud from the Dissidia version of his appearance are kind of blocking that. I really like these two figures, though. They are staples of the collection. I've had them for years. I don't think either of them are too hard to find nowadays, and they're not like too expensive either. So if you guys want either of these figures, great additions to a collection. I really, really like those figures. And then over here are some keychains from Euphoria, which was a Famicom game developed by Sunsoft. So I played this on the Wii Virtual Console, I think, way back in the day, and I really enjoyed the characters. Didn't know they made merchandise for a really long time, but there's a set of keychains and plushes. We'll take a look at one of the plushes in the plush section in a little bit. But these keychains were a set I've been trying to collect for the past like 3 or 4 years, and I think I've bought one of each of these characters over the past 3 years, so it's very, very slow process getting them all. The whole set is 8 characters, but I kind of just want the 4 main characters, so one more to complete the set for myself. And no idea when that one's going to show up, though, so it could take some more time to find. And then here's kind of a cool little section. Got some Toy Set Mario keychains. And over here is like a Sir Kibble area, because I was kind of really into Sir Kibble a few years ago. I kind of tried to build up a mini collection of his stuff, because there's not a whole lot of Sir Kibble stuff. There's some Keshi figures, a little Kirby 64 keychain, some cards. But then this guy right here is a small Sir Kibble plush that I believe was a blind box plush when it was released in Japan. And in the US, it was a like mail-away prize from the High C juice drink. So this is the Japanese one. I got it a long time ago from a Japanese website. Really glad I did, though, because he's very hard to find, and a lot of people don't even know that he exists. And then, of course, the man himself over here, Takara DDD, tagged and everything. I got this years ago as well. I just dropped like a $50 bid. I didn't think I was going to get it, and I actually ended up getting it, so he's kind of been here for many years. This plush is really, really like hard to find and like desired. I don't know. I don't buy into the hype. I feel like if you wait long enough, you can find this guy for like a good price. Even nowadays, I mean, I've never been about like the rare and like the expensive. Like, don't spend a lot of money on like this plush, because like if you wait long enough, you'll find one for a good price. And then over here is a mint Metroid Zero Mission super real figure from Eugen. It's Zero Suit Samus. This was a very big want of mine for a long time. It took me years and years and years to find this, but I eventually did a few years ago, and I paid, I think it was around 70 for it, which was a really good price. So I'm so glad to have this. It's not like super impossible to find nowadays. I think it was actually harder to find back when I was looking for it, but it's still kind of an uncommon figure. I'm really glad I have it. So we'll pan over this way to some anime stuff. I don't collect a whole lot of anime figures, but I kind of made some effort at that. There's like a Boruto figure in there, Lupin. I think Kenshiro is in there as well. Not a big anime guy, but I kind of like some of the figures. And of course, the Lupin's out front here. And then all these guys are standing kind of on top of another display case. But here's a Kiryu action doll. Speaking of action dolls, so this was made by Asmus Toys. And I'm really glad I bought this one I did, because I had just been getting into Yakuza, and there's not a whole lot of Yakuza merchandise that exists, but I saw this and I said, oh, I gotta have that. And they did a Goro Majima in the set as well. I believe he's still in stock on the Asmus website, but Kiryu is not. So I'm very glad I have this one, and I don't have to go on like a big, long lost media search to try and find him. And this is an older Kiryu statue that was released, I think, for Yakuza 2. It's missing its base and some other accessories, but I just wanted the figure. I specifically wanted this figure to display both of them like this, so I don't mind that it's missing its stuff. I think I got it for like $15. Here's a Josuke figure in the first volume of the manga where he appears. I was a pretty big JoJo fan a few years ago. I never got a lot of the figures, but this is kind of all I picked up from it. Here's a Cyberbots Gashapon figure. Not a huge Cyberbots fan, but I didn't know they made a figure or any figures of the series. There's some robots too that I would like to get, but I don't know. I don't really have the room for them because they're kind of big. Some more little small keychains. There's a No More Heroes toilet paper keychain that I think was a pre-order bonus in Poland. Fighting Viper's Bond keychain, and a Genpei Tomaden keychain. I played this game on the PC Engine pretty recently, and I wanted some merchandise from the game. There's not a whole lot, as you can expect, so this is one of the only pieces, but I thought it was so cool, so I tracked one down and got it for the collection. And we won't leave this area without panning up here to the Knights Chow. Yes, I've had this guy for a really long time. He's a staple of the collection for sure, one of my favorite pieces, and he's still in the bag. I never even took him out of the bag. This isn't like factory bag, it's just his shipping bag, because I never wanted to touch him. He's tagged and perfectly mint. This was pretty much the first big item I bought with my first paycheck from my first job. So a lot of sentimental value there. And of course, he chills out next to the silver play button. I know some of you guys wanted to see that. You've been asking if I got that, and yes, I finally did. So two of them are hanging out together, and Supersonic is on top. Lelouch, another action doll over here with a Smash Bros. Keychain. My Smash Bros. Collection actually isn't even here. I never moved it from my other location, so I don't even have all of it here. This is, for some reason, this didn't get taken to the other location with the rest of the collection. So we'll move on to some other action dolls now. So this is kind of one of the main areas of the table, kind of front and center. So here's the Kazuya and Jin action dolls that I mentioned in the video, and they're really cool. I'm glad I have them. I do think they're really nice Tekken pieces. It's just a little weird to me the way that they were made, because I feel like what Epoch did is they had all these extra doll bodies. They sculpted like just average looking heads and just popped them on, because Kazuya has like hands that are very generic and they're a different color than his actual like head color. And I feel like for Jin, they had to sculpt new hands for him because he has the gloves on, but otherwise they probably would have kind of used the same generic body sculpt, and I think that's what they did with these, which is also why like the costume choices are weird. I feel like they probably didn't want to do like Jin in his main costume, because like the body sculpt of whatever figure base they used probably didn't look right, and it was easier for them just to mask it all with this like player 4 alternate costume rather than like sculpt a whole new like body for him. I do think it's cool that we did get like a player 4 Jin alt color though, because we probably won't get any figures like this ever again. I just would have liked a choice between like, well, do you want the player 4 version or like the player 1 version? That's just me though. Maybe I'm being a little picky about that. Here's a really nice statue that I didn't really talk about in the video at all. Here's a Nina Williams statue from Tekken 3. Yeah, Epoch did a lot of statues as well. There's a Jin statue from this line that I really want, but it's very hard to find, and I blew my chance to get it a few months ago. But when I discovered this Nino one existed, I said, "Oh, I really, really need that," because there's actually no like large scale female Tekken figures. All the dolls in this line and everything, they're all males. So this was a 1/6 scale in scale with these guys, which is really nice. I think the sculpt is great. It's a really cool piece, and I picked it up pretty cheap. I think it was only about like $70 or so, which is really nice. And then there's some other Tekken figures behind her. It's kind of like the fighting game section here. There's a Storm Collectibles Jin, which is a really, really nice figure. This is my first Storm Collectibles figure, and it's just, they did a really good job on this figure. And I actually am looking to get some other ones from the series. So really great articulation, great sculpt. And these are still pretty available, so if you guys want the Storm Collectibles stuff, probably get them while you can, because I'm sure in the future they're going to be much harder to find. Here's also, I guess, a little Namco section as well. Here's some like Namco Girls figures from the Yujin set. I think I have the complete set of, I think, Wave 2 and Wave 5, I think. Or no, Wave 3 and Wave 5. Because I wanted to get all the Soul Calibur figures, because there's like not a lot of Soul Calibur stuff that exists, as I kind of made a point of in the video. But there's just too many like spanned across all 5 different waves of these girl figures, so I only bought a couple of them. Here's a Pac-Man Funko Pop. And then over here is some more fighting game stuff. We got Mitsurugi from the Totaku set, Jin from the Totaku set, a little Akira keychain figure, and then Bon from Fighting Vipers. This is one of the only, aside from that keychain I showed earlier, one of the only like Bon painted figures that exists and stuff. I do have a plush we'll take a look at in a second, but I really like this figure. I think the sculpt is great. It's one of those old school Japanese, like, you know, vinyl figures. These aren't too hard to find, so you can probably get one if you look around for long enough. Here's a King of Fighters Kyo statue that was a part of the deluxe edition of the game in Australia. I bought this from just like eBay US, so I didn't even know that it was from the deluxe edition of the game in Australia when I bought it. But it's a cool statue. I thought it was a little bigger, though, when I first purchased it, and there's more to the set that I'll probably never get because they're very, very hard to find and kind of expensive. So Kyo's probably the only one I'll end up with. Here's a Ninja Gaiden, I guess, like figure that came with the deluxe edition of the game. Again, there's not a lot of Ninja Gaiden merchandise. This is probably one of the most common and easy to get figures you can get. I really like it, but the problem is just, it's so big and the pose is so awkward. I had a hard time fitting it in here. I had to take it off its display base because it just didn't fit well. And the sword actually broke when I was trying to put this together, because you have to kind of like, you know, like actually like assemble it. And just the swords are so brittle, they snapped. Or this one snapped when I tried to like lodge it in here. So just, it's a cool figure, but there's just a lot of like weird stuff that you have to like assemble with it. It's just big, and I don't know. I wish they made like a Play Arts Kai like Ryu figure or something like that, you know. But there's a NECA one which has been counterfeited a lot, so I would have to track down a real one. It's just kind of a lot of work. And then here's an Athena doll from King of Fighters. This is part of the active styling line from Kotobukiya. There's a Yuri as well in the set. I don't know why I didn't bid on either of these when I first saw them. Like, I'd known about them for a while, but I didn't actually like see them for sale for quite some time. And then I saw them for sale and didn't bid on them for some reason. So I don't have Yuri, and I was able to track down an Athena from elsewhere. So I'm glad I ended up getting this, but I do have to get Yuri at some point. Over here are some Joyride test shot figures of Akira and Samus, which, you know, test shots are pretty self-explanatory, very hard to get a hold of. You know, all that prototype stuff. Here's some really cool statues. I'm a big Virtua Fighter fan, by the way. I really like the characters in the series. So here's some like old school cold cast resin statues of Akira and Sarah from More Creations, which is a company that like didn't really do a whole lot of video game stuff. So I think they never really get brought up when you talk about old school video game merchandise. But these are really cool. I think the sculpt is great. They're not too big, but they're big enough. And they're really not too hard to get either. So if you're like a Virtua Fighter fan, you might want to pick these up because they're really cool. I really like them. I want to get the first 4 figures Akira at some point, but like clearly I haven't done that yet. And I think this guy is like a really nice like, addition to get if you don't want to get the first 4 figures one. And then here's a Link, another action doll, Real Action Heroes Link from Metacom. I mentioned this guy in the video as well. I got this in a trade actually, or else I wouldn't have him. He's a really nice figure. I really like the way he came out. I kind of wish they did like an Ocarina of Time one or something that wasn't really Skyward Sword inspired. I'm not like a big fan of Skyward Sword, but it's a nice figure. When I got this, the value of this figure was like really low, but for some reason it's gotten very, very hard to find and like rare nowadays. So if you want this guy, you better get him before, like sooner than later, because man, like this guy's going up in value, which is crazy because I just remember like websites couldn't get rid of this a few years ago, and now he's like really desired. There's also another Lelouch back here, another Lelouch action doll. So going up this way is kind of the final area of the display, and that's the plushes. Well, before we get to those though, here's the D-Arts Terry figure. Someone like asked me in my original Terry video if I ever got the D-Arts figure, and I did. Yeah, it's a cool figure, but just, he's not as big as and cool as the action doll Terry. And here's a little Dragon Ball Gashapon set that I had collected over the past few months. And there's the man himself, action doll Terry right there. Kirby is straight up blocking him, but I had no other place to put Kirby. But there he is from the video, still mint, still sealed. I'll have to move Kirby at some point so you can see him better, but yeah, really, really cool Terry. I'm glad I never opened him because I was almost going to at one point. But then I decided that I shouldn't probably do that, and I'm glad I kept them sealed. So here's kind of the plushes. We'll start. I guess we're kind of going, and we'll go up top here. So yeah, like I said in the intro, I have bags and bags and bags of plushes I just was never able to display. So these are kind of like new additions / some of my favorites and stuff like that. So there's some Pikmin ones over back here. This is actually a jumbo red Pikmin from a Sega set, believe it or not. They're really hard to find. I was trying to collect the whole set. You can't even really tell it's a Pikmin, but it is. I was trying to collect the whole set a few years ago, but I never ended up getting them all, and now they're like impossible to find. So I only have this one. They're kind of like pastel in color, and I think that's a direct reference to when you like separate them in Pikmin 1 into the separate groups, they kind of lose their color. I think that's what they were going for with this set, so it's a really cool set in that way. More Pikmin, like I said, some smaller, like UFO Galumba plushes. I like Galumba, he's a cool character. And over here is an FM Towns Marty mascot plush, Mr. T, from that old school Japanese console. I didn't even know they made a Mr. T plush. I just happened to see this one day and I said, oh, I think that would be cool to have. And I bought it. I've never seen it since. There was a bit of a mystery surrounding this one. I guess there was a alternate version that was made with different eyes that I guess the person who bought that had only seen one of. So kind of cool. There's only like one plush of this guy in existence for both of the variants. Mario Sunshine, little plush. Magnet there, and here's a bunch of Tekken mascots, which are really cool. These are some of the only Tekken plushes that exist, and I think they look the best out of all the ones that were made, so that's really cool. This isn't a complete set, I'm missing some characters, but when the lot went up, the characters that were in this lot were among the ones I liked the most, so I just grabbed them for pretty cheap. Here's a really cool plush. This is a Rent-A-Hero plush. It goes to like a set of other like Sega plushes and stuff. Choo Choo Rocket, Space Channel 5. I had been wanting these for years, and I finally ended up finding the girl. There's the guy Rent-A-Hero as well, so I'll have to track him down at some point. But I mean, this took years to find, so I don't know how long it's going to take to find the guy one. Some other plushes like Space Invaders, their little mascot. Seaman. The classic Seaman plushes from the Sega UFO set. I got these a long time ago. Really wacky plushes. I really just wanted, like, if I could just get one plush from the set, I'd be happy, and I ended up getting 2 of them. So, really funny plushes. They're still tagged and everything, which is awesome. Banjo-Kazooie UFO plush that I got years and years ago. Samba de Amigo one that I got years and years ago. Virtua Fighter Akira. Here's a Virtua Fighter 4 Sarah plush, which is very hard to find. A lot of people don't even know that there's a Virtua Fighter 4 plush set that existed. I didn't know it existed for a really long time. I have a couple other characters from the set, they're just not here. Mighty from Jack Pacific. Here's a New Zealand story plush. I don't remember what this character's name is. I think it's Fifi. It was a little platformer game from Taito back in like the 80s, and they made plushes for it, and I thought that's kind of cool. I knew of the game, and I didn't know they made plushes, so I ended up picking that up for pretty cheap. Here's a Peppy plush from the Star Fox set. There's a Slippy as well back there somewhere. Yeah, there he is. I still need the Fox to that set. I never ended up getting the Fox, but there's Falco. So if I just get Fox, I'll have a complete set. They're all tagged and whatever. And I just didn't pay a lot for too many of them. Peppy, I think I got for like 30. Falco, I think I got for 100. I did overpay for Slippy because I just wanted him at the time, and he's the hardest to get. But yeah, you can find these guys for really cheap. Don't pay eBay prices. Don't pay eBay prices for anything that you see in this video. Just don't even go on eBay. Save yourself the trouble. Here's a really cool Banjo-Kazooie plush that is still kind of shrouded in mystery. This was made for Nuts and Bolts back in like the late 2000s, and we thought for a long time it was a Gamescom Germany promo plush, but I've gotten some new information recently that points me towards believing this is actually a Rareware employee-only plush that was part of a contest or some kind of giveaway. There's a listing on eBay that has one of these with a letter of congratulations, which I've never seen that letter before. I didn't even know it existed. So perhaps there's still some more mysteries to unravel with this plush, but I ended up picking this up for many years ago. Again, I remember it was on eBay and the price kept dropping. I don't remember it maybe started at like 500 and I said, that's too much. Dropped to like 350. I said, like, that's too much. I think it dropped to 250 and I finally said I gotta grab it because I just love the way this plush looks. It's so bizarre, just so wacky, and it's just so hard to find. When I first saw it, even before I had seen it for sale because I knew it existed, I said, I gotta, if I ever find that someday, I gotta grab it. And there it is. And then kind of to conclude the collection here, here's a bag. This is like a factory bagged Blinks plush I grabbed from Yahoo Japan years ago for like $30. I don't think anyone cares about Blinks. Bond from Fighting Vipers. There's a whole Fighting Vipers set. I'd like to get more of them someday, but they're pretty hard to find. Here's a Takara Terry plush. Takara made a lot of plushes, a lot of UFO plushes. These aren't too hard to find, but some of the characters can be tricky to get. Majin Buu, like vinyl figure. Solid Snake figure from Metal Gear. And over here are some really obscure plushes. Maybe it's cool that we end the video on a piece of Tekken merchandise. So here's a plush of Roger and Alex from a really obscure Tekken plush set of just the animal characters. There's also Akuma and Panda in the set as well. I think I got these guys for 30 cents because like their boxing gloves are like destroyed because they were made with that bad vinyl material that peels, you know, kind of like Cloud that I mentioned earlier and stuff. I just never see these. I never saw them before. And the first ones that popped up, I said like, I gotta get them. They're both tagged. I just wish the gloves were in like better shape. But yeah, so we'll get a final pan out here of the whole collection, or what's on the table anyway. So yeah, I think it looks pretty good. Like I said, I got to do some organizing, and I did buy some more stuff, so I have to kind of like tidy things up. But yeah, those are some of my favorite pieces and some of the, you know, harder to find pieces and stuff that I like displaying. So there you go. There is the complete overview.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to check out some of my other game-related Lost Media videos. Thanks for watching, and until next time, Finn.